What's up, everybody? This is the Rabid Hedgehog, and here we are on the new 2020 Lowrider S. Look at that, a couple of weeks after the video, and we're actually able to get on her. Now, this is going to be a lead ride, so this is not going to be the typical nice one-person, one-ride kind of thing. This will be one of those that we do have to ride in formation. Alrighty, I got Savage Seagull in front of me. Today is his first day on the big, massive Fat Bob 114, a bike that I really liked. Wish it had a little bit better, brake actuation at that time. But here we are, a couple of years from then. Hopefully, it's all good to go. All right, so now that we're on the Lowrider S here, let's go ahead and kind of take a look. Now, I will say cable actuated clutch on these. So this one is a very late responding clutch. It's going to take me a second to get used to it here. But it's coming up, let's see here, right at the end of travel almost, about an inch left from end of travel. So anyway, this goes back to, of course, the Lowrider. So this actually matches very much the Lowrider regular with the double column here. So you have your speedometer here, you have your tachometer on the bottom. Of course, you have the typical Harley controls of your kill switch, turn signal, start, hazard, and then you have your information screens, your horn, your bright, flash to pass, push in, up to hold, and left turn signal on the left side there. All right. Now, of course, this is powered by the Milwaukee-Eight 114. We're all very familiar with this engine now. It's been a couple of years. Alrighty. I will say, sadly, this poor bike has gotten a ding on the right side here on my tank here. So it's very sad to see that this one's already been down. And it's a demo fleet bike, only came out a couple of weeks ago, so sad days right there. So anyway, let's look at this again real quick since we got a little bit of time. So down there you got your typical fuel gauge right there. Tachometer, gear indication. Of course, your trip A, trip Bs. You have your fuel remaining. You have your clock, and there you go, back tachometer. So all the typical things, of course, inside the gauge housing. You have your turn signals left and right. You have your battery, your fuel, all the fun stuff is down there as well. So it's all there. There's no gas gauge in the left cap like there used to be. So it's back to the old just cap there, fake cap. So no gas gauge. Alrighty, so right now we are about 45 miles an hour, and we are cruising in fourth gear at around 2200 RPM. Of course, this is where Harley-Davidson shines, basically, is very low-end torque and everything. Now, these 114s and any Milwaukee-Eight, for that matter, 107s and all that, because I'm doing a lot of this with engine torque braking or engine braking or compression braking, however you want to call it. These bikes are fantastic at that. So, amazing on that, exactly. So, it looks very familiar from back here. When I rode the old Dyna Lowrider S, this actually does feel very familiar in a sense. It kind of looks the same. You have your, kind of miniature T-bars. You don't have a full-out risen T-bar off this one. But it does put your hands a little bit higher than your standard one. I do have to say the mirrors are very compact in there, and they're not very big, so all I see mostly is my arm. I'm trying to get them spun away from not looking at my arm, and it's not doing a good job at the moment, but I can still see the other lanes. I can still see what's going on behind me, so we are good there. Now, overall position on this motorcycle, of course, is going to be upright. This is one of those Harleys, it's not a feet forward design. So this is, like I said, this is what the Fat Bob should be. The Fat Bob has kind of the same general dynamic of this motorcycle, but this one's got the mid-mounts. As you can see, being that I have a 32-inch inseam, I do start to come above the tank here. So I actually am very tall for this motorcycle. 6 foot tall, a little bit under 6'1", 32-inch inseam. I know some people say that's kind of weird, but if you see a picture of me, I have a very long torso versus my legs, so it kind of makes me interesting on proportion. So one of those things. Anyway, but as you can see, the knees do come up above the tank a little bit there. Feet fall straight flat from there. No forward positioning whatsoever, so you're in that mid-mount, maybe slightly more of mid, about an inch maybe. And of course, bear with us for a moment as we get by. Like I said, these lead rides, you kind of watch for signals and make sure everybody's in the right spot. But anyway, so, and of course your arms, I mean, you're just literally sitting here straight, your arms come down straight, same thing, straight out. Actually, my arms rise a smidge on this bike from where they fall, so I'm actually down and back up and then fist in the wind. Alrighty. So what does this big old girl have to offer here? So this, I'm kind of getting used to it right now. Gonna take a moment to get a few turns, and I mean, we don't get very many turns here in Oklahoma, but for the platform, it's a very stable machine. Feels like it wants to rip, roar, and snort just like the original Dyna version. Now, I will say, this one feels much tighter. It responds much quicker to the bar input. I want to say for some reason these bars are a little bit more narrow, so I don't feel like there's as much leverage as there used to be on that Dyna Lowrider S, but I could be wrong. It just feels for some reason I'm a little bit closer together than I was before, making for kind of an interesting geometry. But so you have to, to be it's hard to say, but the chassis is compliant, like you barely touch it, and as you can see, we're ready to dive and everything. But to really get her over, you're going to muscle it a little bit more because you are going a little bit shorter, so you don't have as much leverage on your bar and your turn. It's not a big deal though. It's not bothering me at all. Transmission is being spot on right now. Nice and clunky like Harleys are. I don't mind that at all though. Suspension on this bike is like the Fat Bob as well. It's the inverted front fork from Showa, dual bending valve, and monoshock rear. One thing I will say it does lack is the adjustment knob for the suspension on the side like the Fat Bob's got. So you can't preload it without taking the seat off and turning either the nut or the wrench to it. Now the seat, I'm going to give a lot of credit to this new seat. Back in the Dyna days, that seat was miserable on the original Lowrider S, but this one is much more cushy. I like this one a lot more. This is one of those bikes that actually would feel good on a longer range tour. Like I said, it took a second to get used to the clutch, but now that we got there, it's shifting like a pretty good dream here. Like I said, that compression braking is magical. All right, sitting still here. I mean, this thing is all blacked out, everything blacked out. It's just like the Fat Bob to my right here that Savage Seagull is riding. It does go back with the gold wheels, like I said, like the original Lowrider S, so that's a pretty cool feature to take that back and put them back on there. Everything else looks pretty darn good on this machine. I mean, I don't mind the look of it. The thinner new headlight makes it work out really well. Acceleration's really good in the low end. We are actually still riding in second gear at 40 miles an hour. We're pulling near 4,000 RPM, so we're getting all the way up to where she starts to truly make her full power. And it rips, roars, and snorts. It's actually, I actually think it's as good as the original Dyna one. I was worried about that. I was actually really, really worried about the Dyna chassis changeover to the Softail being not as exciting, but this is actually very reminiscent of the old Lowrider S, and it's actually making me happy because I'm already finding this one way better. It's way more comfortable. The bike itself is easier to handle and ride. The chassis that they have now, being that it's lighter, that's stiffer, better suspension all the way around, is holding this bike much better. We go over these railroad tracks, you don't get bucked off at all like you used to in the good old days of the Dyna. Like I said, love the Dyna chassis. Had a Dyna chassis before. This one's just better. Let's grab some brake here. Alrighty, front brake, double disc on the front from Brembo, I do believe, and they grab, but you will see that it is lightly sprung in the front end because, boom, look at that dive. Dives a lot, even with those inverted forks. So there's that. I'll try the back brake here in a moment and see how she does by herself, because that's been one of those things that's always been a problem whenever I play with Harley-Davidsons, is for some reason or another we end up with bad brakes on the back. Now, sitting at idle, it's a Harley-Davidson. I mean, you could see, though, the new counterbalanced Milwaukee-Eights. There's not... Remember the old Dyna used to shake all the time over here, and just nothing. Some people think that takes away the charm. Some people don't mind it. I, for one, can go either way. But you definitely do feel the machine. You do feel an engine running there. You do feel vibrations through the handlebars. You feel vibrations through the seat. You can hear that in my voice a little bit there. But you feel vibrations throughout the bike, through the seat, through the feet, through everything. And that's not a bad thing. I don't mind feeling a machine. I want to be able to know that it is a machine at times too. I mean, I have my Honda, which is glass smooth, but there are times where you just want the machine to sing. Sound is very docile in this machine, but don't expect a stock machine to ever sound great because the EPA and Euro 5 say no. Can only put out so many decibels. Like I said, the engine on this bike pulls just fine. I mean, especially in the lower gears. Unfortunately, we'll not be able to take this on the highway, so this will be kind of one of those truncated reviews. But saying that this is a bad bike, it is definitely not. It's an actual very good machine. I don't think it's worth the $17,999 they're asking for it. As mentioned in my video, there's no cruise control. These bikes used to come with cruise control out of the factory. We're a little bit less expensive during the Dyna years, and they just didn't do it this time, and I kind of wish they would have. I mean, this is ride-by-wire. You can turn this to parade mode by turning forward on that as well, so that way it shuts off that rear cylinder if it's getting a little warm if you're sitting at a light, so it does have that option on there. That's a good thing. But I mean, for what it is, I mean, if you're looking for a bare knuckle brawler kind of motorcycle that's just something that's a hot rod and a tiny skin, this is the one to look at if you can get a good deal on one. I mean, they're brand new, so it might take a second, but even the Dyna chassis was a really good one. But I like this one quite a bit. It is a very good successor to the Dyna chassis. I like the suspension way better. It doesn't feel as dodgy. It definitely is much tighter. And these brakes do work a lot better. The back brake is still nothing to write home about. But yeah, the brake takes a lot to get it to actually clamp down fully. And I was actually defeating it there for a moment on the rear. So rear brake is still needing a little bit more grab. I understand that's 30% of your motorcycle's power. But in a panic stop situation that your front brake failed, you do want it to actually be able to feel as good as the front brake, or at least that you're slowing down. Because this one right now, I'm on it, and you can see I'm not doing any discernible back off. Like, I'm actually on it, it doesn't really back you off. And I'm releasing the throttle as well. So that's something that does need to be still worked on a little bit. And of course, that can be fixed with bleeding and some other pads and some other things. That's something that's attainable. But it doesn't distract from this being a nice, comfy, plush, bare-knuckle brawler all at the same time. This bike is something that can be taken out for a pretty decent amount of time. The seat is actually nice and comfortable this time. The 114 engine is very easy to get along with. It rides very cleanly, very easily, very smoothly. It has a little bit of soul in it too. It has a lot of power in it whenever you're in the lower range. I mean, it's definitely going to get off the line, get going, get quick. It's not as fast as a Night Rod, I will say that. It's not as fast as, you know, a lot of the other bikes that are out there, but it's going to leave reasonably well. It's going to do good things for you. It's going to make you happy. I mean, right now we're just looking around 30 miles an hour, third gear. It's doing this work just fine. It's kind of nice to know if it's a good Sunday cruiser, and it definitely can be. And like I said, it's just comfortable. It actually works rather well. So if you want to take this around, you know, your countryside lake here, a nice little road, slow speed, just enjoying the view, enjoying a nice ride, just kind of like this guy coming up on us head on. I mean, this is a great bike to do it on. And like I said, it's super comfortable. So it's something that if you go out and you ride it for a while, you're going to like it too. It's definitely something you can go between bar and restaurant, bar, whatever you want to do, friend to friend, just bar hopping. This is great for that too. Definitely one of those stoplight running bikes. So if somebody does something to you, you know, you can beat them at the stop line, beat them down, and have a great time. I mean, it's just riding nice and comfortable. I mean, it's just a nice, comfortable bike. I'm actually enjoying it very much. So in the Softail line, this falls just below the Fat Bob in overall fun and excitement. I love the Fat Bob. Great machine. I don't feel that this one is quite as turnable or as easy to turn as the Fat Bob. Fat Bob has wider bars, a little bit lower, more leverage to get around with. And that shows, because this one is a little bit different in getting into the turns. The geometry is a little bit different, but it's not bad. It's easy to turn. It's still easy to get along with. You're not going to be going to a track day with this thing and trying to go like 40-degree lane angles. You're just going to go out there and have a good rump about the town, and it's great for that. It is definitely a great motorcycle when it comes to that. I would recommend taking a look at the Lowrider S for sure, especially if you're looking at motorcycles kind of like the if you're looking for, you know, something like the Rocket 3 or one of those that are going to be somewhat in this price range. That's bare knuckle, just big brawler type motorcycle, kind of those things. This bike is a good place to look at too. Don't discount it just because it's a 2-cylinder and a Harley. It's definitely, the lightness helps it. The power, I mean, they're very similar to the 110. I don't feel much different on it, but it does feel really good. It rides really well. It is a great successor to the original Lowrider S, a better successor to the Lowrider S. It's a great sequel, and I think everybody that's had a Lowrider S before need to ride this, and they'll appreciate it quite a bit. And if you're looking for the 114 models, like I said, I'd go with the Fat Bob first, but I like this one as well. This is a great motorcycle to go with too. So at any rate, this is the Rabid Hedgehog. If you have any more questions about the 2020 Lowrider S from Harley-Davidson, please let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to help you out with that. And as always, keep that shiny side up, folks, and we'll catch you on the next ride.